Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we're going to be talking about Infiltrator. This is part of the Worlds of Power book series. So this is an enjoyably dumb story. I have never played Infiltrator before, so I wasn't totally sure how close this was to the game, uh, or what was even in the game. And I didn't know that this was a sequel. At least the one on the NES was. The original one was on the Commodore 64, the ZX Spectrum, Apple II, and Amstrad CPC, and probably some other computers that I'm missing. It was kind of weird that the NES had a bunch of weird PC sequels on it that were not marketed as sequels. I don't know why, but it was just kind of a strange thing that Nintendo did and some of these other companies did. So when I looked up the story for this game, it was pretty non-existent. So the book kind of took a lot of liberties here, and they had to make some stuff up. They kept the leaders, or not the leader. They kept the main character's name the same, so it's still Johnny McGibbets. And I'm just gonna tell you that he is the absolute worst goddamn spy. I'll get more into why later, but yeah, he's pretty goddamn terrible. And they sort of turn this story into like an odd couple pairing. So they have him get a little sidekick who's a 16-year-old, I'm guessing, genius who knows every language known to man and can also pick locks. So, sure. It also took me a while to realize the kid had a mohawk because I don't remember reading that when they first described him, but they constantly talk about how he's pulling bobby pins out of his mohawk, and I was like, oh, okay, oh, sure, that works. So the story is Johnny can do everything, literally everything and anything in the entire world, with the exception of speak this obscure made up language, which is really the only reason they need Chip there. But Johnny can essentially do everything. He's an incredibly well known public figure, and they decide that he's the best person for the CIA to send into this tiny country to stop someone called the Mad Leader from taking over the world, maybe. I'm not really sure exactly why they need to stop him. But yeah, so the Mad Leader's creating this weird gas that blows up when exposed to the air, which seems like a really terrible idea, but okay. So they send Johnny in to neutralize this gas. He brings Chip along. None of the bad guys seem to question why this kid is. I know he's 16 and everything. Some 16-year-olds look older than they really are. But he's bringing this kid around with him who's dressed in army fatigues. I don't know why. I really don't know why. But no one seems to question this on the Mad Leader's side. They all seem pretty okay with it. I don't know why that bugged me so much. So these two infiltrate. They infiltrate the base. They eventually find the gas and everything, get it neutralized. They get a secret message from this guy who's playing music. A song that Johnny made up, by the way. Because Johnny can do everything except for speak this fucking language. So Johnny realizes that the song the guy's playing is not being played right. He gets a secret message, basically deciphers it over the course of the entire book. Guy got a lot into that song. It was pretty amazing. So they get rid of the gas, they neutralize the gas, and then some random dude shows up and says, well, I'm an infiltrator too. Because great. And he says, well, we can't leave yet, we need to go save this guy. Spoiler alert, the guy who tells them they need to go save the scientist is the same guy that kidnapped the scientist. Why the hell he told them this, I'm not sure, because it's very weird. there are a lot of strange plot holes in this because not really plot holes, but just stuff that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And that ties back to it being a video game, because that's how stuff would have worked in a video game. You just, you complete one mission, you get the next mission, you get the next mission. That's the way this book kind of unfolds. They rescue the scientist after getting trapped by the guy, and the scientist magically wakes up and takes out the bad guy, which made me wonder why the scientist didn't do that to begin with. I don't know. It was kind of weird. Every problem they run into in this book just kind of gets the way they solve these things, it just ends so abruptly. Like, they just find a solution out of nowhere and they solve it. So they get the scientist out by giving the scientist an invisibility pill. And then they find out, okay, well, now you need to go back and stop a bunch of nuclear weapons. So they go back to the same base, infiltrate it again. No one seems to realize who they are because cameras don't exist in this world for some weird reason. And apparently nobody can recognize the most recognizable human being alive, and he's not wearing a disguise, but whatever. They stop the nuclear warheads with 1 second left because we need to get more cliches into this story. I want to point out, it does sound like I'm being a little negative here. It's just an enjoyably stupid story. It's very fun. But it is dumb. It is really dumb. They stop the nuclear weapons with 1 second left, and then they get told to blow up the base now. So they go around and they set a whole bunch of charges to blow up the base, blow it up, and then escape for the last time. This whole time they're basically breaking in and breaking out of this enemy base, like, just at will, which feels very much like a video game as well. It's really fun, but it is stupid. Really, really stupid. Then at the very end, Johnny meets the Mad Leader for a few seconds at the very end. It's the only time the Mad Leader shows up, and apparently nobody knew what he looked like. But now Johnny does. Sure. And he doesn't capture the Mad Leader because Chip was there as well, and Chip got hurt, so Johnny goes and rescues Chip, turns around, the Mad Leader's disappeared. Again, sure. And then they have a rock concert at the end. Because that's the way this has to end, is with a rock concert. So now everyone knows what both of these spies look like. And they also tell the world what they did. So now everyone knows that these two are spies. Everybody knows exactly what happened. Man, this is a fun story, but it just, it made me really question a lot of stuff that's going on in this book's world. So I'm gonna differ a little bit from what I wrote down when I was talking about Chip. I still don't think he needs to be involved in this. He is just kind of tacked on so that we could have some comedy relief and I guess occasionally pick locks, because he doesn't really need to be there, especially when you see all the stuff that Johnny has done. You think he would have been able to figure all this stuff out and do everything, but Chip is there to basically be comedy relief and to kind of somewhat ground the character in reality, or at least in kind of tamper down some of his superhero qualities. Because Johnny is essentially a superhero. He's a stupid superhero, but he's a superhero nonetheless. Chip doesn't really need to be there, because they could have easily just made it so Johnny can pick locks on his own, which I'm sure he probably could. And, given that he gets a pretty decent understanding of the language within like a 10 to 15 minute flip through of I'm thinking it was a dictionary from what I'm remembering, or it could have been a phrase book. How the hell he gets a basic more than a basic understanding, but a pretty good working knowledge of the language after flipping through a phrase book is just fucking beyond me. That's not really how things work, but whatever. Yeah, it was just very weird. Chip was essentially just thrown in to make this an odd pairing buddy cop type thing, which works pretty well. He does add some humor to it occasionally, but for the most part, if they just kind of cut him out, I would not have missed him at all, and it would have been perfectly fine for this story to go forward without Chip in there. He really just kind of seemed to annoy Johnny and get in the way more often than not, and occasionally he does save things. But yeah, Chip did not frickin' need to be there. He was, I don't know, he just did not need to be in this story at all. Okay, yeah, so Johnny's an absolutely terrible spy. He is not the person that should have gone in there to do this stuff. He is incredibly high profile. He owns his own tech business, which essentially seems to just make everything and anything on the planet. He is starring in movies. He is a seemingly well-known musician. Everyone seems to know who he is and what he looks like, which made it really confusing for me when he breaks in there and nobody seems to recognize him. He is not wearing a disguise over his face whatsoever. He would be someone that everyone would know. He probably would have his face plastered over every magazine, every TV show would have him on it. People would be talking about him and all of the bullshit that he's doing. So why they decided to send him in is just beyond me. They could have easily toned this down at the very beginning and just had him, be some kind of a super spy anyway. Just have him with a whole bunch of gadgets. Make him 007 and that would have been perfectly fine. Or, I'm sorry, James Bond if you don't get the reference for 007. But no, they're just he does everything. He's an executive of an incredibly successful company. He's in movies. He's playing music. He's composing music. He's rubbing elbows with the president of the United States, so everyone knows who he is and what he looks like. So I find it really hard to believe that a bunch of people at this, even if it is essentially a closed-off country, they would know what he would look like. Everyone would know what he looks like. So why would the CIA send him in there? It's just absolutely beyond me. The dude has no OPSEC whatsoever. Oh god. He also built the helicopter that he flies in. He's building all of the military's equipment right now. I really don't understand this. It was me thinking way too hard about this stuff because of my background, and I'm no, this guy would never have been selected to go in for this mission. This is just absolutely ridiculous. They would have sent someone in who is just as good, but would not be as recognizable. It was kind of ridiculous. Okay, so final thoughts here. Even though I don't buy Johnny as this world famous spy, and I really didn't like Chip all that much at first, it's still a really fun story. This feels like an 80s action movie or just some random buddy cop type movie where you have an odd pairing of the tech geek and the big tough dude who the commando guy, and they work together and they become friends and everything. And that's pretty much what happens during this. Eventually, Johnny kind of warms up to Chip. They went through a lot of stuff and they seem to like each other at the end of it. So it's full of cliches, but they're well done. And if I was a kid, I really would have enjoyed reading this because it is a fun story, even if now as an adult I'm wow, this is really stupid. It is an enjoyably stupid story. So anyway, guys, that's gonna wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.